So thank you all for joining us. This is the session, Leveraging Librarian Power, Enhancing GIS Instruction Through Co-Teaching. We have an amazing group here today. I'm Angela Lee. I'm the Education Program Manager at Esri. And, we thought we all knew how to use Zoom until you started trying to run a conference on it. So, we are here to talk about partnering with our libraries to help us in teaching, supporting GIS at our institutions. So why should we do that? Well, because educators are being asked to do a lot with limited resources. The field keeps growing. I mean, look at how many different subfields we have. Between all these new capabilities and applications, it's hard to keep up. So collaboration can help you accomplish more without doing more. Why partner with your library? Libraries are great partners because their mission is to support curriculum and to support research. So their goals align with your goals. It's a win-win. Libraries play a crucial role in cultivating information literacy, including data literacy. Unlike most people, librarians love working with metadata. And librarians typically have a service mindset. Knowledge and skills can be taught, but mindsets and disposition, less so. People become librarians because they like helping others succeed. As Patricia said in a panel a couple of weeks ago, librarians are happy people. They like to help others. Libraries typically have a mandate to serve everyone in the institution. They have a central position in the organization chart. This is not to say that librarians are immune from politics. It's just that they're competing in a different arena. Librarians serve multidisciplinary audiences and have broad subject matter expertise. They don't actually know every detail of every subject, but they know somebody who does, and so you benefit from their networks. Now, this is a bit of a generalization, but these are some of the typical GIS services you'll find in libraries: data management, community building, communication, access to software and specialized devices, and instruction. So we're going to focus today on instruction. And with that, I'm going to hand the reins over to Jeremy Menace, who is going to facilitate our panel.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Jeremy Menace, and I'm a professor at Temple University in the Department of Geography and Urban Studies, and I am also the current president, at least for another few weeks, of the University Consortium for Geographic Information Science. If you're not familiar with UCGIS, we are an organization comprised of about 65 universities and affiliates, and we consider ourselves the academic hub for higher education GIS in the US. So let me say thanks a lot to Angela for inviting me, and to Esri for hosting this. It's really cool to be here and get to talk about this. So Angela asked me just to talk for a couple minutes about my perspective from UCGIS on this topic, and then we'll turn it over to our panelists with some questions. But I think, in UCGIS, we've seen a number of our newer members come into our organizations with applications initiated by folks in the library. And this is something, we've noticed with a lot of interest. And, just to spend a minute or two reflecting on maybe what's going on. I mean, I know, of course, that there's a long history of maps and cartography in libraries, and a lot of libraries, have transitioned to a lot of GIS and data services and things like that. But, one of the early sort of missions or goals, I should say, of UCGIS was to try and coordinate and grow GIS activities on campus. And it's been challenging to do that. And one of the reasons is while the use of GIS has really grown in a lot of different units, of course, across campus, it's really hard to get anthropologists to talk to engineers and geographers and computer scientists and epidemiologists, that have really varied interests, to get together and spend time talking to each other about, their common interests in GIS. It's just the siloed nature of a lot of the way that professors work. And it's a bit like herding cats and so on. So the library, though, like Angela said, has a really unique position. And I should also say a non-threatening position in a lot of ways to a lot of academic units on campus. And there's a great opportunity there for coordination of a lot of GIS activities that I think could just be a great benefit to everyone on the university campuses. And I certainly see that, and you see through UCGIS, and I see that in my own institution at Temple, where there's increasing interest and recognition of the importance of GIS and the potential for the central role for the library to play in some of those cross-campus activities, along with, of course, other units who do most of the teaching, of the GIS courses and things like that, which is what we do in my department at Temple. So those are just a couple of my thoughts, and I'm just really excited to be here and talk about this. So thanks for that. So why don't I stop there with my own thoughts and let us turn it over to our panelists. So we have representatives here from Clemson University and also from Yale University. So why don't I turn it over to Patricia and Natalia from Clemson University. Perhaps you could introduce yourselves and just talk a little bit about the overview of the co-teaching among GIS librarians at your institution. Give us a library perspective and a faculty perspective on that collaboration. And we'll just spend about 5 or so minutes for each university. So can I turn it over to Patricia and Natalia?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. We're excited and honored to be here representing our model at Clemson University. So I'm going to share my screen quickly. Let me know if you can see it. Yes. And so I have the pleasure of co-presenting in this panel with Professor Natalia Sienko. We'll talk a little bit more about the partnership, but she's one of those champions who has really been a wonderful partner and collaborator on supporting GIS instruction across campus. And she will talk to you a little bit more about it. But I just want to give you an overview of Clemson because some might be. Clemson is a medium-sized university in South Carolina. It's a land-grant university, so it's not just a traditional research or instructive university, and we have a lot of programs throughout the state. If you are, for some of you who might be football fans, we have a very strong football team. You can see the stadium over there, but we have a lot of other great, wonderful things. We have about 20,000 undergraduate students and 5,000 graduate students, and we do not have a GIS or a geography department with a lot of GIS courses. So what we have is our center. Our center is a partnership between the libraries and the IT to kind of bring both the best of both worlds to support GIS across campus. We do a lot of, research collaborations, grant development, certificate programs. In this case, we're going to focus more for this panel into the instruction and outreach programs that we do with our faculty. But the idea is that we have this, all of these services centralized in a way that supports the faculty. So we are not going after our own grants or after our partnerships. We enhance is that faculty do across campus, and then we come in as a geospatial or GIS collaborations or grant developments stronger. So just to give you an idea of, in terms of instruction, consultations or like workshops, we're able to support in a typical year about 20 different courses across all of the colleges in our campus. Most of the time will be like a 2 guest lectures, but sometimes can be something much more extended, like a 5-week course or a full course. So I'm going to pass it to Dr. Cianco, and she's going to give you a faculty perspective.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Patricia. Thank you, Angela, for the introductory remarks. Thanks to all of the participants here. It's a pretty big group. Also, thank you to Jeremy for the introductory remarks that really laid a nice foundation. And back to Patricia again, the pleasure is all mine. And Patricia is the one who did all of the heavy lifting, as I am doing my best to concisely cover several things that we've done together. But let me just circle back and say a few words about myself. I am an assistant professor with the Department of Sociology, and I'm a social scientist by training, very broadly trained social sciences. So the idea of silos and being an interdisciplinary person is something that's been sort of a challenge, persistent challenge. Some of the things that I think has made that very appealing and attractive to partner with GIS is because through those collaborations, I felt that I found a home with having those multiple personalities and pulling from different disciplines. It was really the intersections of those interests that sometimes may seem a little bit distant. But let me just jump straight into a concrete example. And I wanted to separate my remarks into just 3 examples. My collaboration with Patricia started a few years back, and the very first project on which we partnered was a class that we co-taught together. That was something that Patricia had an interest early on, and she was looking for a little bit of guidance in terms of substantive and covering a topic or perhaps a more concrete examples. And I was able to bring some of the context from various organizations as well as other units on campus to give that particular project for students to work on. So that was just one example. And this, I consider myself as a sort of a support instructor in that role, where again, Patricia with her center provided all of the technical expertise, really walked students through how to use software, what are some of the details and smaller things that needed to be addressed. And we were the ones with real research problems, with real research questions. And then another example is our more recent collaboration, where this is becoming more of a habit, I would say, or a tradition, where Patricia's been able to work out, I would say, a model for all instructors at our university to benefit from at least a couple of classes where somebody with GIS expertise could come in and fill in 2 or plus hours of instruction in any course. So to give you an example, I teach a globalization and social change class, and students are typically expected to work on a project with a couple of team members. And what Patricia and I have done is we have another person who comes in from her lab doing a short introduction that typically, again, covers maybe 45 minutes to an hour, and students then apply what they learn in their own projects. And then my last example would be the 5-week module visualization for the social sciences. And this is something that I felt worked really well for graduate students or anybody who is doing, who's above the undergraduate level. And this is especially appealing to those who may not be able to commit to a full-length course throughout the semester. And instead, this 5-week module works in such a way that it's a pretty intensive course but the advantage of it is that it's very concise. And now we have a couple of examples, but I should have made a disclaimer that apologize for the lengthier introduction. I did not, let me just say, one more principle I would like to highlight as I am trying to stay true to my outline is the interdisciplinary nature of some of those partnerships is really probably the key advantage and the key principle that goes through all of our projects. And this is something that typically excites interest, right, until you try to define it. And even though we pull from different disciplines and the idea may be something with which a lot of people identify, it can be very challenging to come up with concrete examples. And through these various collaborations, through the different ways and models of partnering, either for a class, for a longer 5-module course, for example, we've been able to pinpoint and to not just talk about those things, but really give the power to the students to see how some of those technology could be applied in whatever disciplines they come from. Either it's mathematics students, either it's somebody who's studying criminal justice. So that is just in a nutshell. And I probably will hold my challenges and a couple of lessons that we've learned through this collaboration for later. But I just wanted to wrap up with this and see if we could probably turn it over to the next set of presenters.
Thank you, Patricia and Celia. That was really helpful. And before we go on to sort of general questions for the panel, let's hear from Miriam and Dana from Yale. So I'll turn it over to you two. And if you could just introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your institution and your faculty and librarian perspectives on the collaboration. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm super excited that this panel was organized. If you are listening, you had joined us and you are a GIS librarian, I am thrilled that that's happening. But if not, please tell your GIS librarian when you go back to work that this is happening. And I want to plug kind of a commercial. Patricia and I are getting very involved in UC GIS because we are very interested to help bridging GIS libraries and GIS support services and faculty and UC GIS. So please join us, reach out to us. Hopefully we can continue collaborating on this. And now I will start sharing our thoughts and a little bit about our Yale University. I am joined today by Professor Dana Tomlin, which I'm very grateful because he's always very busy. So I'll start giving you an overview of our institution and also a little bit of the perspective about this collaboration co-teaching. So, okay. So as hopefully you have heard about our institution, but just to make sure, Yale is a private university, it's an urban campus, and I'm sharing the numbers for Yale members just so you think about potential GIS users on campus. We have around 4,600 undergrads, over 7,000 grad and professional students, 5,000 faculty members, and 27,000 plus staff. And we do get interactions with all affiliations and also many postdocs that are embedded in the staff category. Then the Yale University Library is the hub for free GIS support services across campus. The reason why I said free is because I understand some of your units will need to recover costs and staffing salaries, and that is okay. Just you need to plan differently in terms of buy-ins and how you allocate the resources. We are a small team. It's myself as the GIS librarian full-time, And this semester, I'm super excited that we have 2 geospatial consultants, brilliant PhD student and candidate, and they spend around 10 hours per week helping us. The kind of services we provide is, of course, outreach and making sure that everybody knows about our services, including GIS Day, which takes a lot of our time during the fall semester. Then instruction, which it would be workshops that we offer, but also course embedded classes, consultations, and even sometimes things like chatting about GS career or grant writing to help faculty members to have the right wording for their grants. So Yale has a long-standing GIS tradition. In the 70s, Donald Cook was a grad student who co-developed the first geocoding algorithm. Then Dana Tomlin, as a doctoral student, generated map algebra. And I have heard that in 1990, we acquired the first Esri license. That was a partnership between the Yale Center for Earth Observation and the library. So the library has been involved since the very beginning. We have a mailing list that tells us that there's a lot of activity going on campus. If you consider that 800 for the number of students we have is kind of a high number, is what I feel. We have around 3,700 GIS online accounts. Some of the users have left already, but the reason why I am giving you this number is because it's how many users we've been able to connect with to provide that kind of support. And we know that we have around 150 unique users for virtual desktops that Yale offers to our community. Tomorrow we'll be presenting about that if you want to join and learn about it. But of course, we have many Yale-owned machines as well as student-owned computers that have the desktop installed. And on the right-hand side, I shared kind of the applications and software that are more commonly used at Yale, so you get an idea. So we have GIS courses taught by 2 faculty members and many GIS embedded courses. For instance, we have Professor Elliot Rubin, who teaches an urban class in the School of Architecture, and he normally gets 250 students, and they get to do GIS embedded in the classroom. Professor Bill Rankin teaches always including historic mapping, and he has a wonderful work and his radical cartography website that I invite you to visit. Dr. Jennifer Marlon, who's part of the Yale program for climate change communication. She's been co-teaching a visualization class that includes some story map development to share the projects. Professor Karen Cito recently taught with several colleagues a social justice and environment class. And Digital Humanities Lab has been supporting spatial mapping and story mapping in many of the courses, even for undergrads, and archaeology and many others are doing that. Why am I sharing all these? Is because the support that we can provide, besides just giving one session to tell what GIS is about, is what the value that we've been seeing lately, and the pandemic has helped us to understand that. So this is a list of centers that I won't go over. I don't want to go over time, but just telling you that there's very important projects happening at Yale, and the students who get to participate in those projects invited as student workers or research assistants. They need support, and also the teams need support for one question all the way to multi-year projects that need some guidance from us. So the importance of this part that I want to focus on is in co-teaching. I do not co-teach with Professor Tomlin per se, but I believe that since I joined Yale, we've been complementing with his role of instructor. I've been trying to understand what I can do to help his students. And for instance, one item could be data discovery and data management and many other things. So what is the role of a librarian that you can offer to faculty members? filling the knowledge gap, meaning there's a course that can cover so much, but then the students still need to learn more, and not even students only, but also faculty members who want to integrate GIS. So what can you do as a GIS librarian to close that gap? There's many ways you can do that by, for instance, offering workshops, but also studying bringing your expertise to the classroom so you can help teaching beyond the classroom. And what do I mean by that? What do I mean? What I mean is that you can offer through consultations a complement of what the class was not able to accomplish, either because of time or because of the virtual environment, and some students got behind. You can help creating asynchronous learning videos so they can go and learn on their time, the students, when they are not working, when they have a chance, so they can catch up with class, or also they can go beyond what the class is teaching, so they can even offer a more sophisticated project for the class. So again, the consultations have been very valuable. We learned that this is a great place where we can teach. And honestly, lately, I've been putting more effort in GIS teaching through consultations than workshops, because our workshops people attend, but they are not following the hands-on, because it seems people are burned out, and including students, but also others who join, like faculty members and staff. So again, as I said, you can help with the special data discovery and curation, data literacy and management, but also the fast-paced service that you can do. I acknowledge that librarians are extremely busy, but at the same time, if you start telling your decision makers that students, consultants can help you to kind of replicate what you do in terms of teaching, and it's what we've been doing. So we have learned during the pandemic that curriculum design is a huge advantage of a service that you can offer to faculty members, because they are really struggling with the virtual teaching environment. And guess what? You might think, well, I'm not sure but are you ready to co-teach? Yes, you have been preparing every single day working as a GIS librarian. Just tell me how many times you have had to come up with solutions for something that you didn't have an idea how to do it. I am sure you've done it. I've been there, and it feels great after you find the solution. So teaching is the same thing. The only thing is that you gotta go and do curriculum design to make sure that you are covering all the aspects that are required for the class. We taught a class that it was for 64 undergraduate students, and I think I got 2 weeks notice. That's what I'm saying. And the reason why is because Dr. Moreno had to shift into this idea, and I want to invite you to attend our session in Pandemic-Inspired Pedagogical Innovations that will happen this afternoon at 3:15, because we'll tell the story. It was a wonderful example of how to co-teach. And the last thing is, I just want to share that we've been teaching, like for Dr. Moreno, we've been teaching for other classes like public humanities, social justice and environment, and other classes that before we were not as involved in curriculum design. So Dana, I'll let you now to share your thoughts. I'm trying to, yeah. Can you just share over me, because, okay.
Give me just a moment.
Yeah, I was unable to find my stop share, but I did now.
You know, maybe it doesn't matter that I'm having difficulty sharing. The thing that you need to know about me, the only thing you need to know about me, is that I've been teaching GIS for 4 decades now. And for 3 of those decades, I've been doing so at 2 universities, the University of Pennsylvania and Yale. I've enjoyed teaching at Penn during those 3 decades. but I have loved teaching at Yale during that period, largely because of the kind of collaboration that I've enjoyed over all of that time, most recently with Miriam. It's true that she's not credited for participation in any of the 4 courses that I teach each year, but she is absolutely critical to all of them. And there are specific reasons for this that relate to the degree to which I try to encourage my students to be proactive rather than reactive in their relationship with me. One of the comments from a student at the end of a course that I appreciate most is one where the student said that the worst thing about this course was also the best thing about this course. The professor insisted on thinking that I was more capable than I thought I was. When I talk about trying to get students to be more proactive, essentially what I'm saying in less poetic terms than that student is that I try to encourage my students to show off. And this involves 4 particular devices that I use. I try to present the challenge, offer the support, provide the opportunity, and dangle the reward. And I think as I describe these, you'll get a sense of how Miriam and I work together in this regard. In terms of challenge, I pose weekly homework assignments that are insidiously contagious. And if I were able to share my screen, I'd show you one of them. And you would nod your head. You would say, oh my goodness, this is better than basket weaving or crossword puzzles. Secondly, each week I offer optional brain teasers that are insidiously difficult. And again, if I were to show you one of these, you would say, that's impossible. Let me give it a try. Thirdly, students work on semester-long term projects that are entirely of their own selection. They have both the opportunity and the obligation to select these projects. And generally the best of these, the most fantastic of these are those that involve the most fantasy. Lots of students put together projects involving environmental impact assessment or site suitability analysis, but the best of them are those that involve the Star Wars galaxy or Lord of the Rings or Winnie the Pooh. And again, the slide that you're not seeing right now is a wonderful depiction of the 100-acre woods. In terms of support, certainly we rely on the same sort of online chat forums, teaching assistants, library assistants that I suspect all of you do. But I also provide my students with lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of handouts that are specifically tailored to this course and tutorials that walk them through, handhold them through sometimes difficult material. Opportunity is the third of the 4: challenge, support, opportunity, reward. Opportunity exists in the form of no grades. No grades until the very end of the semester. This is a model that's adopted in design schools, studio situations where everything leading to that final submission is an exercise. The professor and the student are on the same side. Although there's no grades, there are weekly assessments. What about reward? essentially what I try to do is to replace the sort of parental pressure that students are inclined to feel with something much more benign, yet much more powerful, and that is peer pressure. Every week, every assignment is posted to a Google Drive for every other student to see. I find, having done this, that it is, I'll say again, much more powerful than having the students try to impress me. They're trying to impress each other. And so how does this relate to the interaction between Miriam and me? It's difficult for me to cite specifics because our act is so intertwined. I do think I can describe it, however, by asking you to imagine what it is that made, oh, Miriam, you got it. What it is that made you as creative as I suspect you are when you were a kid. Was it your parents? I suspect so, but maybe not so much as your aunt and uncle. The relationship that the librarian has in my classes is avuncular. In short, Miriam is the aunt who is more approachable than I am, who is a little bit more complimentary than I am, and who is always a lot more impish than I am. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Dana, and thanks, Miriam, for your presentation. So we have less than 10 minutes left, but so maybe we could just shift to kind of an open question for the panelists following your overviews. And here's the question maybe we could focus on. So we've been hearing a lot about the benefits, the impacts, and all the great things that happen when faculty and librarians work together. But there must be some challenges or even failures out there, and those would also be good for folks to know about. One comment that came in through the chat here is about using more active pedagogical methods like discussion or something, teaching a class like GIS that can be more technical. That would seem to have some intersection with co-teaching between librarians and faculty members. So if you could just talk a little bit about not only the victories, but the failures or the challenges, that might also be useful. So I'll open the floor, but maybe I'll just call in Natalia if you maybe want to start with this question, if you'd be willing to.
Sure, it's a great question, and I wish I had all the answers, but a couple of thoughts come to mind. Well, the first one, which was actually a little bit on my slide, and that is something that has to do with variability. And I think maybe I'm stealing a little bit of Dana's comments, but it really is a question of perspective. You know, on the one hand, it can be seen as an advantage, but on the other hand, it can be a huge obstacle. And variability really is this, two-sided principle or concept. So for me, now, because you've asked to talk about the challenges and some of the things that have been tricky, this has really been, sort of a work in progress. And I'm seeing a little bit of improvement, and that is to try to recycle, the idea of not to reinvent the wheel, but something that has worked in the past may not necessarily work, in that same class next year. And that sometimes can be a little bit discouraging. That is from the perspective of a faculty member, right? So you put in a lot of time, a lot of effort to prepare all the background materials, and then you realize that, well, the match isn't that great for that next course or the cohort of students. They just have slightly different interests. So that's one thing. And I hope I'm reading some of the students' comments correctly by kind of highlighting the challenge for them. And that would be really struggling to find that true connection, right? When eventually it clicks, and for most of them it does towards the end, but there's all this time, you know, the semester is long, and where they, especially in classes like mine, where the substance is pretty heavy and there is a lot of theory, a lot of readings, but then you put in that technical component, and then students are, you know, many of them are used to this traditional model where, you know, they expect, okay, an instructor is going to give me a question and they tell me what to read. And as long as I persist and kind of do all those X, Y, and B, I'm going to succeed. And what they realize is that many times there isn't, you know, a written textbook. So it really kind of challenges. But then I think I'm not staying true to your question, because I am turning it into an opportunity. But this is really, so I think it also depends on the student. Those who rise to that challenge, they eventually come to appreciate. But for many, they just feel resistance and saying, well, I signed up for this class and I didn't expect this to be, you know, spend all those hours to figure out how to produce a map or a story map. Like, I really want to know something about the theory, for example. But those are just two quick things. I know that we are short on time.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, it's interesting because as I'm listening to you and then just following what Dana was saying, I'm thinking these are actually two different things going on, because your class is not, you're not talking about teaching like a straight up fundamentals of GIS course or something like that. You're talking about teaching a sociology course, and you're introducing, you know, these geospatial, whereas Dana, if I understand your course, you're more teaching, you know, more conventional GIS, and you talked about all the kind of you know, pedagogical devices and methods that you use to engage students, and but you're both trying to come at this in the same idea, which is to keep your students engaged and things like that. It might be different for a different type of class or different, you know, students coming in with different set of expectations. So I don't know, I'll open the floor to any other panelists that want to, you know, maybe comment on that.
I would welcome the opportunity to talk about a failure, and I'll do so very briefly. Years ago, a student came to me rather upset, indicating that the GIS librarian was, let me say this euphemistically, competing with me. This was someone who was very ambitious and thought that the road to success was not to collaborate with the professor, but to work behind the professor's back. Bad idea. I'm done.
Miriam, were you gonna add to that? Or
Yeah, I guess Dana's referring to something else, but I would say, for instance, the difference in Yale, where we don't have a geography department, and my previous job at Yale, at Texas A&M University, I would say that you need to understand the concerns of faculty members. So when they worry about some academic department getting the teaching instead of having it on their home department, I totally understand that, because they need to have enrollment. So the librarian is not about to reduce enrollment for your academic department, but rather to enhance that. And I would say one thing that we often, all of us faculty members and librarians may forget, just because we get so busy with everything, we should always remember that what we all are doing is teaching and enabling our GIS users so they can find solutions for our world. So if you can support faculty members and making their job less stressful and more productive in terms of producing more GIS minds, then you are really aligning with the mission of your institution. I mean, at Yale, we have a couple of strategic plans that are leading where the decisions are made. And one of them, I counted that there's, I think 400, I did it last semester, but 400 plus data is mentioned, and then GIS as well, 100 and something. So it is very important. And if they are at Yale looking for planetary solutions for the world challenges, then we definitely can help on that by partnering with faculty members.
Very good, thanks. Patricia, I just want to give you an opportunity if you want to chime in since everyone else has spoken.
I
No
know we're
pressure,
almost
though.
out of time. I think I just would like some piece of advice to the GIS people that may support campus and is the risk of burnout. So there's a lot of things that we can do for a lot of people, different GIS classes, non-GIS classes, consultations, grants. And so my role has evolved. I'm a very enthusiastic, passionate person. I love that I get to say what I do is for free and I get to help you. But there's the problem of scalability and being able to, what I always tell my staff is like, when you say yes to somebody, can you think about who you're saying no? So it can be very appealing to say, we're going to go teach a full course. And there's a lot of, it's hard because you're trying to, provide the services, feed the demand, and at the same time, you cannot have people who are just really burned out and tired, and so it's just a balance. And I would like for you to just be strategic and just think about the services that we offer. How can we do it in a way that is sustainable, that is scalable, and that's also balanced, because we are humans beyond just for people, like we were saying, we love our jobs. We fall into that trap often, very often, and you know who I'm talking about. All of us have been there, and we still do that. So that's being a hard lesson that I learned, just not just for me, but for people in our group that I know. The opportunities are so fantastic that you have a hard time saying no. So just keep that in mind.
Very good. Well, thank you. We are out of time, so we're going to have to end this session. I think there's a lot more that actually could be said, but I want to thank all our panelists. Thanks to Angela. Thanks for Esri for organizing. And Angela, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I also want to thank the audience for coming in, all the panelists, and mention that Miriam will be talking more about some of her projects in a session that starts at noon Pacific time. And then we can all continue the conversation later today at the Academic Library Special Interest Group meeting, which happens at 1:15 Pacific time. So now we're going to take a break. We actually have a 30-minute break between these sessions. The next round begins at, we have this right, 11:15 Pacific time. So we'll see you in around 30 minutes. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, so we have 30 minutes for Q&A then.
Or lunch, depending on how you want to look at it. Sure.
Thank you, Angie, and thank you, everyone. It was wonderful to see you.